Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tech News Weekly. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by John Bub. How you doing, John?
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. I have been out in the sun all day long. I've gotten back into basketball. And yesterday on What the Talk with Paul, our Patreon show that we do, the entire show was dedicated to sports. And we were talking about, what kind of sports we're in and how sports have changed. And I have really got back into basketball. And then I found out something interesting about you. You were a huge Chicago Bulls fan.
Oh, yeah, totally. I used to live in Illinois for the first 10 or 11 years of my life. So I grew up in that era where there was Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Phil Jackson. So, of course, I'm a huge Bulls fan.
What's fascinating to me is the amount of knowledge you have about sports. And, this is not the first time this has happened. And it's always in the chat room. It's very nonchalant. We have a chat room here. If you listen to the podcast, anytime you can sign up for our chat room. There are people in there all the time. Merle's in there. Ron Knight. I can't see the rest because my vision is horrible. But a lot of people are in there. About 50 people in there. They're chatting away. So if you ever decide to come by, come and say hello if you listen to the podcast. But you do this weird nonchalant thing where somebody will be discussing sports and you bring out crazy statistics. You're Phil Jackson is the winningest coach ever of all time in basketball. He had a 60% win rate with the Chicago Bulls from 93 to 97. And I'm like, how do you know this? You don't watch sports, crazy bizarre facts about the Detroit Tigers. All this weird stuff. So I have deemed you a closeted sports fan.
I'm older and smarter than you.
You're very smart. You're a very smart boy, and a beautiful boy, like Joe from Staten Island would say. But I've gotten into basketball. I got into sports. I've taken care of myself. I'm down 34 pounds now. So I bought a new basketball hoop, and I'm setting it up. And I forgot how difficult it is to set these things up because it's totally complicated. I mean, it's convoluted instructions. You got to set this thing up. But I got the one with the glass background, the backboard is glass. Yeah. So it looks fancy. It's a very fancy basketball hoop. I'll play it 3 times.
You spent a lot of money on it.
No, it was $200.
Well, that's a lot of money to me.
Oh my God, that's nothing. If you go on Amazon and take a look, I got it on Amazon. I'm going to make my pick of the week next week. We're not doing picks this week, but go on Amazon and take a look at these hoops that exist now. When I was 15 years ago, when I was playing basketball, this did not exist. You had one portable hoop. It was plastic. It was a Huffy or a Wilson or a Spalding, and that's what you played on. Now, these things are so elaborate. They're professional grade, everything, and they go for $2,000.
Wow.
I'm $2,000 for something that sits outside. Crazy. I'd rather get a MacBook for that price.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So this is what I've been doing all day. I may seem a little out of it by the end of the show because I've been literally out in the sun for about 6 hours already. I've gotten quite a tan, and I'll probably start peeling tomorrow because I haven't put on any sunscreen. But, John, if I pass out, you are in charge.
No!
You have to control the rest of the show. Why don't we go?
That wouldn't be unusual for you, so.
No, I tend to pass out regularly on Friday evening, so it seems to happen all the time. But why don't we go right into the big story this week, and that was Google I/O. Yep. Google's yearly conference for developers took place this week. A lot of information. Now, I saw on Twitter the debate happening, and it's so interesting to me how things are either black or white. It was either, wow, this is great stuff, or wow, I don't understand what they just did. It's awful. There was no gray. In hindsight, now looking back, a lot of this stuff was pretty important for the ecosystem of Android and how they're going to continue to grow. We'll start off with Android L. Why don't you talk about this, John, for a minute?
So as everybody knows, their next release is going to be an L-based name, and they're just calling it Android L right now. They have yet to actually name it because a lot of people were like, "Well, are they going to call it Lollipop? Are they going to call it Larry? What are they going to call it?" Well, for right now, it's just Android L, which I find a little peculiar that they haven't set a name for it yet. But Android L has a couple of things with it. It's got this new enhanced notifications in Android, which is much like you have on the iPhone and what they're going to do with iOS 8, whereby it allows you to read, open, and dismiss alerts directly from the lock screen without you needing to fully unlock your device. But the more important part is this new material design that you're going to see throughout a lot of Google's products, from their new Android Wear, Android Auto, Android TV, Google Web, Google Desktop. All of this stuff is transitioning over to what they're calling a new material design. I guess they kind of call it like a visual language, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's just a very odd term for me to hear that. But basically, it's a design that they're just calling material design. It's a new flat-based design that will come not only for Android, but Android Wear, TV, Auto, Web, and Desktop. Like I said, it's a much more flat design. But
Grid
here's the thing
layout.
that-
They're gonna have a grid layout now.
Oh yeah, yeah. They talked a lot about the grid layout. But I'm still not sure what to make of this yet, because if you looked at the demo video that they played for this and that they have on the web, it's a lot of transitions. Yes, they spend a lot of times. I think they said that they've introduced 60 new super smooth transitions or something like that. So a lot of what I saw in the video was mainly just transitions and just very, very basic demos of what they are envisioning for this new material design.
Yeah, generally every time that Google's done this, or even Apple, they show off a complete operating system or a coherent operating system. A lot of this stuff is just video demos. A lot of these
Yeah.
features are not evolved yet for developers. A lot of these features are going to be coming soon. I do like the fact that they are now concentrating on a complete UI. And when I say that, I'm an Android user. I use Android because the devices are, they have a larger screen. The ecosystem is pretty evolved at this point. It's pretty mature at this point. I would have an iPhone, but I don't need one right now. I'm already engulfed in the iOS experience, as I say all the time. So
Right.
I want to experience all the platforms, which I do have. I have a Windows phone. I have an Android phone. I have an iPhone in my house. I think the problem with Android has been that some parts of it look complete, and then you go to a whole different area, and it looks like it has not been touched in a while.
Right.
It's not as pretty as iOS. It's more of an industrial feel.
It doesn't need to be as pretty as iOS.
I don't know about that. See, this is the thing. I was one of those people that said that, but I'm not. I don't know. I do think that the UI is getting a little long in the tooth, which now with this, they're cleaning it up, and you're going to have, if you open up an image, let's say that has a red influence in it, it's going to have a red bar. So the images are going to represent how the OS kind of looks to you, which I think that's great. I'm just curious on the long-term evolution of this operating system and where they're headed. I don't see a direction when it comes to Google. I just see them trying something new all the time.
Sure, but that's something that Google has always done. You remember that most of their products come out in beta and stay in beta for 2, 3, 4 years. And I
Yeah.
think Android is still somewhat in that beta phase where they're still figuring out exactly how all this is going to work. And especially with Android L, this is something that I find very interesting, is the fact that, in my opinion, a lot of what they showed off with Android L is very alpha level, very early stages. They don't even have a complete vision, I think, yet. As we saw with that video, so much of it was just very boxy or just very basic colors and shapes, where it didn't actually show you a complete interface or a complete application, and which is showing you elements of the design itself that, to me, lends to the fact that not only do they not have a name for this yet, but they don't have a complete vision, or they don't have anything even somewhat completed yet. They just have an idea. Why don't we just make this new flat design that's going to be cohesive amongst all the stuff, which I'm not knocking. I'm just concerned that at this stage, they don't necessarily have a complete vision or anything really completed at this stage.
They did show somewhat of a. For me, it actually it means something, and that was Android 1, and that is their unification process. That is their kind of their prototype, of what these phones should have for $100 sub $100 phone. These are the standards that you must follow, and if you follow those standards, you're going to have access to the Google Play Store and the Google services. This is the first time that they've done something like that. And these things are going to be constantly updated. Something that has plagued Android for a long time. Now, this is only for certain type of phones. Certain markets are going to get this. This isn't going to bring...
It's basically emerging markets so that you end up having these phones that are these cheap phones, budget-friendly phones, but don't necessarily completely suck.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and we have that here in the States. I mean, Moto X, Moto E, Moto G, Moto V, every letter Moto device now is kind of that. You could buy it unsubsidized for $200, and it's not the top end phone. It's not the entry level phone. It's somewhere in the middle right now, and they're being constantly updated. I think this is great, but we have to bring this here. The fragmentation in Android is disgusting. The fact,
let's get just to give you a stat on that, because I like stats.
You love stats.
They claim that they have 1 billion active users. However, we recently heard a stat that only 15% of Android users are on the latest version of Android.
15%.
So you're talking 15% of 1 billion users only have the latest operating system.
Okay, so then break that number down, John. So you're talking about 4.4, right? Android 4.4. How many of
whatever
them are
the
on,
latest is?
So the latest right now is 4.4. 4.4.4 is the latest version. How many of those people are on 4.4.1, 4.4.2, 4.4.3? Even more. Even more fragmentation, even within the OS.
I think that's to be expected amongst carriers and devices.
Okay, but let's talk about Apple. Okay, Apple has iOS 7, right? iOS 7 comes out, or iOS 8. And let's say the latest version of iOS gets 8.1, and you don't get 8.1, but 8.1 has some big fixes. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to get an email saying, well, you're knocking them, and it's not the same thing. Well, no, kind of is the same thing. You're releasing a brand new phone. 6 months. It came out 6 months ago, and I don't have the latest operating system. Operating system came out 6 months before. How does that make sense?
I think with any device, you're going to have that end point in life, that end of life cycle. But at the same time, I think you have to have, I think if you're going to sell these devices, and most people, I generally believe, do own these devices for at least 2 years. But even within those 2 years, they're not getting the latest operating system, and I think you need to make a effort to at least have those users that have a 2-year-old device on the latest version. And I don't think that's unreasonable. Which I think is much of the case today, where you have a phone that came out even a year ago still doesn't have the latest Android operating system.
How about a phone that came out probably 6 months ago, 4 months ago? They don't have it.
Sure. I mean, I can understand 4 to 6 months. Because it still might be going through some sort of testing phase.
No. I'm saying if the operating system has been out, right? Let's say a year it's been out. Since November. Let's say since November. So 6 months into that operating system being released, a new phone comes out and is running the older version. The argument here is that the operating system doesn't matter. It's what the OEMs, the ROM that the OEMs are putting on there is what matters, which I don't think that's true. These OEMs are all using the same Snapdragon processor. They're all using the same type of graphics. They're all using the same exact stuff. It's such a shell at this point that's being changed. It just bothers me. But again, this is a great step Google has taken to kind of standardize updates.
Oh, absolutely.
15% is, for this operating system came out almost a year ago, 15% is not good.
I think what they're doing with Android L is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. The other thing that was really good, I didn't get a chance to talk about on What the Tech, but the Chromebooks, they're going to have floating windows of your Android applications. Essentially, all your Android applications, you're going to be able to run them on your Chromebook. This is a huge.
I don't know I don't know if that's that big of a deal or not.
John, huge. I'll tell you why. This is a huge hit to Windows. And they have to start getting worried when you could go out to the store and spend $300 and get a very good-looking laptop. I'm not talking about the best specs, but a very good-looking laptop. And you know that you won't get a virus, you won't get malware on this thing. The odds are very unlikely. And now you have all your Android applications, because a lot of these people have Android phones. Majority of the smartphone market is Android. So all your applications are there. This is a huge, huge hit, in my opinion, to Microsoft. Why? Let's talk about this. Why would I get my kid a Windows laptop for $500 when I could go and buy a Google laptop, a Chromebook, and spend $199 or $299 on it? And I know that it's not going to, if they break it, they break it. I don't care. Why would I do that?
I'm not as impressed as you are about that.
I personally, I think the operating system, obviously, it's still in its infancy, but this is going to take a big hit.
Market.
I don't know, John. Let me ask you. Let's say you have grandparents. You have older parents.
I don't know anybody that owns a Chromebook.
I don't
people
either,
that I
but
know that had any interest in a Chromebook have been tech enthusiasts that wanted to check it out. Those are the only people that I've ever known to have any interest in a Chromebook.
I think more of the people find out about the Chromebooks, the more likely they are to buy it due to its price point. You get a 14-inch screen for $279 or $249.
But you still have that stigmatism of what happened with the netbook market.
Yeah, but the netbook market fell because of crappy hardware and small displays. And people realize that they don't.
But you don't. It's pros and cons. You have pros and cons with the Chromebook as well.
Absolutely. But I think for the masses, if they know about this device, it will be appealing to them. And this is bad for Microsoft because you know what? The entry-level PC market is where they make them. Money comes from. I'm not saying now. I'm saying where it's headed. Do you use Office? Let me ask you. Do you have Office installed on your computer?
I have it installed, yes. Do I use it often? No.
You're more likely to use Google Docs.
Not necessarily, no.
Well,
I just generally don't use those applications, period.
Okay, so, for example, like instead of using Google Docs, you write the show notes in Gmail, and you send it to me. Okay, kind of the same thing. I don't use Google. I have Office. I never use Office. I haven't used Outlook in years.
I don't think anybody has.
Google's taken over that market. I just think that once you commit to these services, it's far easier to commit to the ecosystem.
Sure.
And that's how Google's going to control this market. And that's with
Google
the services.
Has made a lot of improvements in the past year to their document service.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's all I use.
I mean, it started off as something that was very basic and kind of a little bit hokey and not quite as mashed to a professional office suite. But today, yeah, I think you can definitely compare it to a professional office suite like Office.
Absolutely. It's whatever you're used to using. For me, it's convenient, so I just open it up and I just share it, and I know it's there all the time. So I'm committed to the ecosystem. Now they're all about the same, but I think it's services like this that it's slowly taken away from Microsoft. Slowly. It's not going to happen overnight unless Microsoft does something to really, mess everything up. But these are the struggle. In 10 years, we're not going to be talking about Apple versus Macs versus PCs. It's going to be Google versus everybody else.
Sure.
Because they essentially could control that entire market.
Well, and they're pushing into this market where they want to be every Android device for anything in your home. They won't want you to do it. And one of those, of course, is something that you like. You like smartwatches. You like watches in general. They've come out now with what they're calling Android Wear. That's their operating system for smartwatches. We don't really have a whole lot of information and stuff out there, but there are 3 companies right now that have announced devices. There's the LG G Watch, which has a storage that weighs in at 4 gigabytes with 512 megabytes of memory, a 1.65-inch screen, which is 200 by 280 pixels, IPS display, and a cell phone grade Snapdragon 400 processor, which is I think in the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini or something like that.
Yeah.
Then they also have the Motorola Moto 360, which the only information we have at this point, it has a unique circular design.
That's the only one that kind of looks nice.
That's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
And then our third choice is the Samsung Gear Live. It includes Gear's 2's 1.63-inch Super AMOLED LED screen, a 300 milliamp battery, and 4 gigabytes of storage. Plus, it also has what fitness gurus will be glad to hear about, a heart rate monitor.
You know what?
So those are the three watches that we have right now that are going to be running this new Android Wear.
Out of all of them, I would wear the Moto 360 if I had to pick one.
I looked at the comparison because there was a couple articles that compared all three of them side by side, or at least a picture of them. And this is something that I found interesting that you've mentioned before when it comes to iOS devices, is the bezel around these devices and the screen itself. I thought the bezel, at least on the Samsung and the LG, there was a lot of bezel around that screen.
The Gear? Are you talking about the Gear Live?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Gear Live and the G Watch.
Yeah. There's no reason, you know what? There's no reason why that watch should have a bezel because you're not touching the sides. You're not holding it. Remember the whole argument with cell phones? Like, well, if you remove the bezel, then how are people going to hold it? I mean, that's stupid. That's a stupid response that they used to respond with. Yeah. Again, these devices, this futuristic iWatch thing is not going to happen for a while. And
I think it's still very early in that market. I think this. I'm not saying that this won't ever happen. I think we're just too early into it, where it's going to be too expensive for the general public to pick up on these things. I think they're a great idea. It's the Dick Tracy watch that everybody's wanted since the 50s, and the problem is we just still technologically aren't there at a level where it does everything our smartphone can do. Yes, it'll do similar stuff, and I think Android L furthers the progress in that area, but we're just not quite there yet, especially in price wise, because we don't have any pricing information on any of these devices, any of them. I mean, yes, you can pre-order. I think it was the LG G Watch. You can pre-order that next month or whatever, but they haven't announced any pricing whatsoever. So we don't know if this is going to cost $100, $199, or $299.
Yeah.
And if it's over $200, are people really going to buy it?
It has to be a companion device. But here's the other thing. You hit on something interesting there. And this has been my argument. The technology is not there yet. Not so much about the software end. I'm talking about the hardware. The technology behind a fitness watch or a fitness band or an iBand or whatever this is, in order for it to sell well, in order for it to appeal to the mass, market, it has to be something unique. It can't just be...
And it has to be cheap enough.
And it has to be affordable, yeah. It can't just be a stupid screen on your wrist. It can't be that. It has to have a unique design to it where people look at it and say, wow, you know what? That's actually really cool.
Honestly, I think these Android Wear smartwatches are, in my opinion, and I know I'm going to get flack for this, I think they're better than the Pebble.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I don't understand the Pebble and all that stuff, but I think because it does very much become a companion device to your smartphone.
You know which one?
I think in that sense that it's going to be able to do much of what your phone does, just with the display, so you don't have to pull out your phone every single time to do whatever you want with your phone, which is kind of nice.
You know which one appeals to me the most out of all of them? Strangely enough,
which one?
The Gear, the Gear Fit,
the Gear Live.
No, the Fit.
The Fit. Oh, the one with the fitness stuff.
Yeah, which it's long and narrow. It's not like this gigantic screen on your arm. That's the only one that kind of appeals to me, and I still wouldn't buy it. It's just not something I would get.
But I think they do need to put sensors in these devices
that give you,
whereby it gives you that fitness information that a lot of people, all right, that's great. So I can get this smartwatch that not only does the fitness stuff, but it also becomes a companion to my smartphone so that I can do these other things very quickly.
Yeah, and these sensors, it's fascinating how Apple, Apple had their WWDC conference, and they spoke about, what kind of technology they want to support some of these things. They want to support the health monitoring, and all these companies now came out and said, "Well, we're developing, technology where you could have a sensor on a watch, and it'll tell you your hydrogen level, your O2 level, your whatever. Like essentially, it's the craziest stuff that it's going to be able to detect." The most fascinating one out of all these companies, it's an Israeli company, and the technology exists where you'll have a watch and you'll like beam it, for example. It already exists. So you'll beam it, you'll press a button, it'll scan the molecules in the food that you're eating, and it'll tell you how many calories it is. And it's constantly being updated. So it knows what it is because the information's going to a cloud. So for anyone that's dieted, calorie counting is the worst because you know what? It's really difficult to eat out and do calorie counting. With this thing, you're going to be able to just scan the molecules in the food, and it's going to tell you how many calories it is.
I think that's part of the reason why we don't have a huge market for stuff like this right now.
Because
it's almost like, in the earlier days of smartphones where you had to choose between Wi-Fi or GPS in your phone. Whereby now you can get both Wi-Fi, GPS, and a whole host of other sensors in your phone. Now you need to have the same technology in your smartwatch. You need to be able to do all that fitness tracking plus communicate with your phone and whatnot.
And again, we're not going to see that. So the technology is there; it's being developed.
Yes,
but it's
going to be another
5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, yeah.
5 to 10 years. We need to also remember what the tablet market was like when it got started. Go back and look at what these tablets were.
2004, 2005, when Microsoft had those gigantic tablets.
Let's go back and remember what it was like. It takes time to evolve and to get there. Are we going to get there next year? Probably not. Are we going to get there in 2 years? Maybe. 5 years? Most likely.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's just me. Maybe someone will tell me I'm wrong. And you know what? Tell me I'm wrong. I'm curious to know.
It's a progression of technology.
We are so
there's
used to.
There's a lot of people clamoring, and there's a lot of hype for this stuff. The problem is that we're restricted by current technology.
Yeah, but
we don't necessarily have anything developed along the state of what people are actually wanting and hearing from all the hype. I think
we're also spoiled. We got very spoiled between 2009 and 2011. These groundbreaking products got released to the market. These products got released because it was a perfect storm. These technologies had advanced to the point where we were able to kind of release these devices that we wanted. It was a full package.
Right.
Now, it's a slow evolution, and until the next thing comes, we're going to have to wait.
I mean, I think we're kind of seeing that with these kind of gimmicks. I mean, fingerprint sensor, for one thing, I think is kind of a gimmick.
Sure, but what is it going to lead into? What is it going to lead into?
I mean, I think it'll eventually get to something that's going to be great, but it's more of a slow evolution, whereby we're not seeing something. All right, well, we got this thing, and this is also part of the day and age that we live in, where everybody's so connected and plugged into stuff that it's very hard to keep a secret. So whereby, I think we have so many blogs, it's just impossible to keep a secret. You're always going to have these rumors that's going to kind of spoil everything.
And also, the rumors spoil it for the company because most of the time the rumors are much better than whatever is released.
Right.
These mock-ups.
That's what I'm saying is that you're seeing everybody come out with these concept renderings.
And they look 1,000 times better than what's out. 1,000 times better than what's being released.
Right.
Let's talk about Android TV. Basically, it's Google TV.
Try number 4.
Attempt number 4 for Google. Let's see how this one does. Android TV is Google TV, but it's been totally redesigned. It's going to give you essentially every application on Android. You're going to have access to it, so that's good for developers that they just have to change something in the SDK when they release an application where it'll fit the screen or it'll know what kind of device it's on. You could also run all your games with a gamepad. Android TV will be in Sony, Sharp, and Philips TVs next year. No information on a set-top box. No information on who other partners are, We don't know how development will be for this as far as, the hardware requirements. Very vague announcement as far as Android
They
TV
announced a
goes.
lot of things without announcing a lot of things.
They showed hardware. There obviously was hardware. It was a live demo, but they didn't announce what kind of hardware requirements exist for this thing.
Or who's making it.
Or who's going to make it. Nothing
when
yet.
it'll be available.
Or when it will be available.
I guess this is something that they're going to incorporate into TV sets. And instead of having these smart TVs that run Yahoo connected applications or whatever, it's going to be built into the TV. Sony, Sharp, and Philips TVs next year, they said.
Surprised Samsung's not on that list.
LG, I think, is doing WebOS, correct?
Yeah.
So we have LG doing WebOS. That'll be interesting what Samsung does. There's Samsung and Vizio, which are two big TV manufacturers that haven't really done anything lately.
Just give me the display. Give me a pretty display, and I'll hook up whatever device I want to hook up. I don't want it in TV.
Exactly.
I don't care. Just make sure the display's
it
nice.
It does not need to be built in because the hardware that's built into your TV can easily become out of date within 2 years.
Absolutely.
That runs that stuff.
Yeah.
And you might want to have a new set-top box in 2 or 3 years, but your TV you're going to have for 6 years. I don't think it should be built into TVs.
No, I don't think so either. I think
they need to include a second HDMI port or whatever you have to connect to the device, and that's the way you use it. It's going to be an external third-party device that you buy on your own.
So another announcement was Android Auto.
Seriously, who has had a good experience with the built-in smart TV interface on TV?
No one that I know.
I paid $100 extra for a freaking smart TV from Vizio, and I've used it maybe once or twice.
What applications do you have on there?
It's whatever the Yahoo connected TV apps are. It's got like a Netflix thing. It's got the basic stuff, but it's so slow. You hit a button, you wait 30 seconds for it to do something.
Android Auto was the in-car version of Android. It'll be available via 25 manufacturers, starting with 2015 models, and that includes Acura, Alfa Romeo, which doesn't affect us here in the States, Bentley, which affects nobody except for the 1% that's able to afford it.
What,
Chevy,
you're not the 1%?
Chevy, Chrysler, Dodge, Honda, Hyundai, and 3 head unit partners are Alpine, Clarion, and JVC, just to name a few. Nissan Infiniti was on that list too. I don't remember seeing.
By the way, you're on there twice.
Who's on there?
You are on the screen.
What the hell did I click? There we go. Wow.
That was weird.
That was really weird because that was up there for a while. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So it was actually cool. It's the same concept behind iOS in the car, CarPlay.
CarPlay.
It's essentially, it's not left to the manufacturers to put this in. They just have to allow, I guess, add a port or, I guess it comes down to not even the manufacturers, but BBX in the car, right?
I'm not sure how exactly the protocols work and how it
Because
connects,
BlackBerry's
but
manufacturing all this.
You mean QNX then?
QNX, I'm sorry, I said BBX. QNX is developing all the car applications. All these interfaces and these on the smart cards
I
are all
can't confirm
QNX.
that because I don't know.
I'm almost
I know-
convinced that they control this entire market. From crappy
It's likely
UIs
they
to good
do.
UIs. They control the entire market. So it's up to
But the fact that
QNX.
you're basically able to just whatever device you have, whether it's an Android smartphone or a Windows phone or a iPhone, you're going to be able to extend that screen directly to the screen in your car and be able to use commands through your car to utilize your smartphone on that screen.
Yeah.
Which I think is a smart way to do that because you're going to own a car. I mean, generally, how many years do people own a car? And if you have a car that lasts for, more than 6 years, you're going to go through more than one phone.
Also, car technology is behind by at least 5 to 10 years. Technology in the car is very outdated by the time the car
That's
comes
why
out.
I think it makes more sense for it to be something where it extends your smartphone to your car, whereby whenever you update your smartphone, it updates your car in effect. To me,
Yeah.
that makes much more sense. You're more than likely when we go through. I mean, I know there's people that within a span of 3 or 4 years, they've moved from Android to iPhone to Android.
Yeah. So what happens if you let's say you have a Jeep and it only has CarPlay? Now this UI that you've been using for 2 years, it's outdated. You can't use it anymore because you don't have an iPhone.
Yeah, and you're stuck. And then you're not going to go buy a new car just to make sure that your phone works with it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that they're doing something very similar to CarPlay. I think that's a great move. It's something that's going to be really good for consumers and just a very smart choice.
I'm excited for this. What I would actually like is to know what kind of requirements Google and Apple are telling the car manufacturers, they need for the display. Because remember, your experience will be different from car to car because they use different types of displays, and they're not putting in really good displays in these navigation systems, in these touch.
Oh, they're horrible.
Based systems in these cars.
They're
So
horrible, and even navigating that stuff is just. I mean, when you get a new car and you're not used to that stuff, you really got to sit down and learn the way that it works, which I think is another plus for the way that they're doing this in a way that not only will you mainly work your car, your smart car through voice commands, but it'll also have a similar interface to what you're already used to on your phone.
So less time staring at Fat Jimmy says who drives anymore? That's what Fat Jimmy says in the chat room. Who drives that? My wife has a good car, so she's driving all the time. I'm not driving anywhere. Why don't we go to another story, John? So those are some of the announcements. Obviously, there's a lot more to cover.
Oh yeah,
we're not going to get to.
There's a lot of stories that they announced stuff, but I mean, honestly, this is just stuff that we're not going to hear any more about this stuff until the end of the year.
Yeah,
I mean, you can kind of, I guess, say the same for WWDC and Apple, but at the same time, Apple seems more like something that's cemented and will actually happen, whereby there's still a lot of ambiguity. I can't even say the word. Ambiguity.
That's definitely not it. I don't even know what that was.
Just a lot of unknowns with what's going on with Android L.
Yeah.
We don't have pricing or release dates for any of this stuff.
Probably
nothing.
Fourth quarter.
Stuff that's coming.
Fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter next year. Yeah. Okay, so great.
We're gonna see it in the fourth quarter. That's about it. The U.S. Supreme Court.
Not sure what we're gonna see.
The U.S. Supreme Court, John, ruled that Aereo is illegal. The streaming service is illegal under copyright laws.
Damn.
Yeah. So this is the end of Aereo unless they start paying, fees, rebroadcasting fees,
which they're not going to do. The CEO said that he definitely doesn't want to do something like that. He sees this as very much against his principles.
Yeah, well, you know what? In order to stay business, I think you're going to have to do it. They had found a loophole in their minds where if you were leasing an antenna from them, so they had a factory. It's actually here in Queens, their office, and it was a garage of sorts, and the entire thing is just antennas lined up, and you lease this antenna from them. They thought that was because they're not transmitting anything. It's your antenna that you're leasing. So essentially, that's their way around this. I think where they got into trouble was when they started doing DVR functionality, and I think that kind of hurt them a little bit more because now they were more of a service and not just leasing antennas. But I think it's over for them.
Yeah,
I can't see them staying alive.
I'm trying to figure out what the difference between what Aereo does
and what Slingbox. Yeah.
Yes. Because I see them as very similar.
You own you own the Slingbox.
But you're essentially doing the same thing. Only that there's a centralized location for that stuff.
Yeah, well, because the way
Instead
that they
of it
see
being
it
in
was
your
Slingbox.
house, it's in a warehouse that you're leasing.
Yeah. Essentially, with Slingbox, you're not leasing anything. You're not paying a monthly fee. You own the product, and you're doing it on your own.
But let me read it because they said specifically that it violates two parts of the 1976 Copyright Act. One, perform or display it at a place open to the public or at any place where a substantial number of persons outside of a normal circle of family and its social acquaintances is gathered. Or 2, to transmit or otherwise communicate a performance or display of work to the public by means of any device or process, whether the member of the public are capable of receiving the performance or display in the same place or in a separate place at the same time or different times. To me, that sounds very much like it would apply to Slingbox. Does it not?
Yes. If you by just reading it, to transmit or otherwise communicate a performance or display of work to the public by means. So I think because it's web based and
But so is Slingbox.
so is Slingbox, yeah. I think it's just a service because it's a service. You're sending it out to the public.
I mean, but when you look at the two parts that they specifically cite from the 1976 Copyright Act, that to me also applies to Slingbox. So I don't understand how they can say that Aereo is wrong, whereby Slingbox is okay.
I think it just comes down to owning the hardware. That's all it comes down to.
Because overall, it does the same damn thing.
Oh, excuse me.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Oh God, I tried to hold my sneeze in. Oh my God, that was awful.
It really is, to me, doing the same exact thing. There's no difference in the end result. You're streaming something from one place to another place. Same thing.
Yeah, Ario's argument was that since it only rebroadcasts shows that the user chooses and saves on the customer-signed DVR machine, it's users that are retransmitting the / performing. It's not the company, it's the user that's doing it. And if you're a user, it's legal. That's where it is, John. That's where it is. Because with the Slingbox, the user's doing it.
Yeah.
At the sneeze
Aereo
again.
just provides the mean for the user to do that.
Well, according to the government, they are not only providing a
you're
means, but
playing
they're
with
doing
words,
it. Yeah.
you know? And in a way, it feels like they're picking and choosing, whereby, all right, Aereo is wrong, but Slingbox is okay. And I think Aereo is a far superior product to Slingbox.
Oh, absolutely. But this is it. This is a nail in the coffin. So they're pretty much finished.
And it's not like
let's see.
there aren't other devices out there. You have Silicon Dust HD Home Run Prime, and they have some products that do some similar stuff. And what about anything that's streaming at that point? Because a lot of this could actually apply, because it was so vague in some of the stuff that they said that it could apply to, what about streaming a movie from Google Play? Does that constitute as a performance? That's coming from a server.
Yes, but Google's paying licensing fees. That's where it's different. John, why don't you talk about Dropbox? Dropcam.
Dropcam?
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting story. Nest, which is owned by Google, has acquired Dropcam for $555 million. Now said it'll be purchasing the company, according to Recode. Nest is acquiring it without the assistance of Google, its parent company, which is very interesting, because there's a lot of discussion. Is this Google buying it through Nest, or is this specifically a Nest acquisition? And it is a Nest acquisition, but I assume that Google will have access to it.
I mean, that's like how YouTube is buying, Twitch.
Yeah.
It's almost like the same thing. $555 million for this company. I like Dropcam. They make some good hardware. They have a $200 Advanced Pro version. This is just going to tie into Google's future in home automation, really.
I think it's a brilliant acquisition for them, because I think it very much goes in line with what Nest and Google is planning to do, or wants to do.
I mean, they could tie this into YouTube Live. They could tie this into Google Hangouts. There's a lot that they could do with this.
It's essentially a security system that they have now.
Yeah.
A smart security system.
How does this connect? I'm trying to figure this out.
Dropcam?
Yeah, it's all wireless, but
no, it's Wi-Fi surveillance cameras.
Yeah, so I'm looking here. There's a beach
Next
cam
to your
here.
Wi-Fi network.
There's a beach cam. I'm going to zoom in on this guy. I want to see who you are. You're walking on the beach with your stick.
Is he in a Speedo?
No, there's a guy running to the water.
Okay, so we know it's not European then.
No. The sand pit. It's in, I don't know where this is. What country is this? They have a demo on their website of some country, but I mean, it's a nice looking camera. It's not awful. It's wireless. It's they could do a lot with this. I know that Apple was also interested in purchasing this company, but I think Google will do more with Dropcam compared to Apple.
One would hope so.
Yeah.
So let's also talk about something you just mentioned. You mentioned YouTube. So they actually said they're actually doing this whole conference called VidCon. It's this big YouTube based conference. I think it's in LA that they do this. And they announced yesterday, I think it was, that they're upgrading their service to support 48 and 60 frames per second and adding a tip jar for donations. What do you think about this?
I think that's great. I think these are improvements that we need. You know, everybody's talking about 4K, but, you know, they were talking last year about how they're adding 4K, but the reality is most people aren't going to be broadcasting or watching in 4K, but you could do 60 frame per second video. That's for the gamers, the 60 frame per second. And
yeah, I think that's why I'm not getting too excited about this.
Yeah.
But
it is interesting that, you know, with the Twitch rumors and that, it's kind of tying in.
Sure.
What do you think of the tip jar?
It's neat.
I mean, it doesn't impact us at all.
No.
But it's cool. I mean, I would like to see other improvements, but, you know.
I think there's a whole slew of other improvements that they could do.
Yeah, for sure. All right, John, let's wrap it up.
All right.
I'm having an allergy attack.
Oh, no.
I don't know what happened here. I got very congested. Something got in my eye, and I'm dying here. Go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. It's also 90 degrees in here. Subscribe to us, guys. Also, use our Amazon link. I encourage you guys. I would like it if you did. Go to gfq.co/Amazon, or if you're on our website, click on the Amazon banner and bookmark it. So every time you buy something on Amazon, we get a tiny little credit. We're going to be upgrading some of the cameras. I have some design ideas. I got to get John a DBX 286 processor. So every time you buy something, it goes to our, it builds up credit. We get a tiny percentage. Also, we have a Patreon campaign. If you want to fund the show, if you want to help us out, you want to support it, you can do so by going to patreon.com/whatthetech. We're almost at $400 a week on that. And it's great. I want to be at 500 by the end of next month. So,
by the way, just so that anybody that's listening knows, if you go to our website and you go to contribute, we also have links for Amazon UK and Amazon Canada on there.
We do.
So if you're looking for those type of links, I know we don't give them out often, but you can easily get to them from our website.
Yeah.
And if you go to the contribute page.
So we people have been buying with those pages. I just don't know how to. And we have like credit built up. I just don't know how to transfer it to my other Amazon account because they're all
that's
in like
not good.
It's all in like UK, you know, in pounds or in Canadian pounds, Canadian dollar. So I don't know.
You'll have to do some research.
Yeah, I got to figure that out. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next week. Good night, everybody.